Welcome to our first episode of Pastor Wife Chat. We're so excited. Today we get to welcome the amazing Hannah Parrish. Hannah is the wife of Chris, our senior executive pastor, and you guys just celebrate your 5th year with us.
We have, yeah.
All right, so whirlwind, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But also feels like you've been.
Yeah, it feels like we've been at Buck Run forever. It feels like this is where we've always been and where we've always meant to be.
And so since coming here, not only have you just made tons of friends and family, your family increased.
Yep.
So let's start there. That'll be our starting point.
Okay.
And tell us about your kids.
Yep.
And if you just can describe your kids, then in a couple words,
Okay.
like what those words would be.
Okay, so Elizabeth is 5, and she is passionate.
Mm-hmm. She is.
She's smart.
Yes.
And she's also tender.
Mm-hmm.
So she feels things in really big ways, and she dreams things up in really imaginative and sweet ways. Henry is 2, and he's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
He's also mischievous,
Uh-huh.
and he's all boy.
Okay, so if that you say one kid's like you and one kid's like Chris, do you have a
Hands down, Elizabeth is like me, and Henry's like Chris. Yeah,
Yeah.
like spitting image.
like how about looks even like as little kids?
I think so. When we look at pictures, I think Elizabeth looks like me and Henry looks like Chris. But on a day-to-day basis, we think Elizabeth looks like Chris and Henry looks like me.
I think that probably especially recently when I saw him. You guys did a drive-by at our house, and he was sitting in the back seat. And I don't know if it was after he ate the Reese's cup and got it all. I just go, he looks like him.
Yeah, because that's how I eat Reese cups.
No, it was. But I did think something in his little face and his ways really look like that.
Yep.
And I would be remiss to even ask you and comment that have they found family at Buck Run?
Oh,
and
for
friends
sure.
and-
Yeah, these are their people. They're our people. We have so many. Sometimes Elizabeth will ask me, "Is that my uncle or aunt?" Because that's just how we're so close to so many people, and we have found just like a sweet, sweet family here.
It is.
So,
It's a great family. Okay, so now let's go back to like your nucleus, your family. All right, originally, where are you from?
Yep. So I'm originally from Western Kentucky. I was born in far west Kentucky, and then my dad is a pastor, and we moved to Texas for him to go to seminary when I was still pretty young, and then my dad pastored in some of the suburbs outside of Chicago for a little bit.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
How
And
intriguing.
so, but most of my growing up years were just south of Owensboro in Ohio County. And so that's where I went to grade school, middle school, high school. Western Kentucky is my place.
You go back and see people that you know there, or does that?
For sure. My parents have since moved, but my grandmother is still there.
Okay, so
And
roots.
I still think of that as my hometown.
All right. So growing up in West Kentucky, basically,
Yeah.
would you say that's your? If you're just going to visualize my childhood years, that'd be your thing. What'd you love about it? What was this? What's something that you just go, wow, it's really neat to grow up here because?
Yeah. We grew up, I grew up 5 miles from my grandparents. And so I was incredibly connected to my dad's parents. And because of that, I was connected to my great aunts and uncles. And so I felt like I really was given roots in a really beautiful way of knowing not just my parents and aunts and uncles, but that extended generation. And that made, I think, a huge mark on me. Like when I think back to my childhood, one of my favorite things are family reunions, which I know is not what most people would say, but sitting around talking about or hearing stories and eating this great food and doing things like breaking beans with my grandma and canning.
That's neat.
And learning different like sewing things from my great aunts. Like that is invaluable to me, and that for some reason is just specifically tied to maybe like the slow country life of West Kentucky.
It's interesting because as you say that, now I can see how your personality is even shaped in that community way of interacting on levels of
Yeah.
familyness to like even our family here at Buckred.
Yeah.
So it's neat. All right, so you said your dad was a pastor and is a pastor, still
still
is a
is.
pastor. So you grew up obviously in a Christian home,
I did. Yep.
which is incredibly gracious gift of the Lord, but
Absolutely.
also a different,
Yeah.
whole different world. Anything about that that marked you think, or that you would see this was really a grace of God in my life that I had this?
Yeah. So my parents, I think they intended to teach me this, but I learned to love the church as a body. And to jump in, and ministry wasn't just something you did, it was your way of life. And you're always on call, so to speak. But
Okay, hold this, because
yeah.
we've got some pastors' wives who turn in and watch these things on a regular basis. I want you to hear what her mom did, and I want you to see the difference that makes of that investment that your mom made
Yeah.
in that, and how it shaped how you serve today
Yeah.
in a great way, not grudgingly.
Yeah.
But
And I don't want to say there's bad sides of ministry, but people are people. We're all sinful.
Right.
And I think growing up, I didn't necessarily see the bad. I just saw the sweet love of a church community. I saw that this is what we do, that there's no option of are we going to go to church. It was ingrained in us. And I really just learned a sweet, sweet love. And I also think that's really interesting looking back, because I didn't become a believer till I was a junior in high school. So I loved the church, and I wasn't even a believer
Yeah.
of Christ. And so that, yeah, that's made a huge mark on me. And I think Chris and I both, when we think of the local church, that's where our heart and passion is.
You can clearly see that and
Yeah.
feel that. And I watch as Elizabeth and Henry come in tow on regular days, not just church days,
Yeah.
your Sundays or Wednesdays, but throughout the week. They come in skipping, and
Yes.
you're not dragging them in, though occasionally there may be a drag or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But that there is, you love the church. You guys love the church so much that is conveyed in
Absolutely.
the hearts of their lives, even at an early age. So yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that way that that's who you are, and that you see that as a mission of
Yeah.
your Christianity and your ministry here at Buck Run. All right, so let's go back to your family a little bit.
Yep.
Siblings. You
Yep.
have siblings.
So I have one brother, Josh.
Who is?
Yeah, he's here at Buck Run. Many of you guys know him. Josh is a phenomenal big brother. He is
Aw.
wise.
How far apart are you guys?
He's about 6 years older.
Okay.
Yeah. So just shy. I think it's like 5 and whatever months. But Josh is a great big brother.
Yeah.
He's wise. He has a great sense of humor. He's generous. He's kind. He's calm. He is a great father and husband. I can't think of somebody better for me to look up to as a kid, but even now. Like there's so many things about Josh that I'm still trying to attain
That's
those
just-
characteristics of.
It was
Yeah.
funny. He was on when the governor's doing his update talks, and Josh comes on. I'm fanning a little
Yeah.
bit at this point. I'm like, oh, that's our Josh. I'm
Yeah.
so excited. I'm screenshot
Yeah, me too.
pictures, and just you described him so well.
Yeah.
His calm demeanor and his quiet wisdom, and it's sweet that he uses all those things not only in his occupation, but he uses them in our church.
Absolutely.
And seeing him and Emily on a regular basis.
He's a phenomenal man in general, but he's a great leader. He is not, showy and boisterous, but he just has this calm peace about him. And yeah, just so
He's
thankful for him.
he's taught
Yeah.
here. What do you remember what he
He
taught? So if
has
people want to
taught,
catch it,
yeah,
as a
he has taught a world mission. That's probably the wrong title. Chris is probably like, that's not what it's
okay,
called.
Josh Benton.
Yeah, Josh Benton.
So it's on our YouTube
World
channel.
religions, I think cults and world religions, and then another one on missions in particular. But
Okay.
he has a heart for the world. He has a heart for people. Yeah, he's just all around a great guy.
He
Yeah.
is a neat guy. All right, so let's segue now. Keep going in the family vein.
Yeah.
Herschel interviewed Chris,
Yeah.
and he told just a little bit about your love, romance
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. So I don't know if there was anything different that he told, but let's recap.
Yeah.
You met where?
We met at the University of the Cumberlands when we were in school there.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
What education were you pursuing?
I was history and political science.
I'm not shocked
Right.
by this. Yeah, if you weren't doing that, then you would be in Britain, Great
Yep.
Britain.
Yeah.
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 So,
Anything with history, I knew from a really early age that something about history really stirred me. And great stories and like just being in places where things happened and just seeing that has always just really stirred me. And then even in high school, freshman year of high school, was when 9/11 happened.
oh yeah.
And something about that gave me a desire to serve. And I felt like, and the political government realm was just something that really intrigued me. Again, I wasn't a believer at that time. I did claim to be a believer, but I wasn't a believer at that time. And I genuinely think it was the Lord working in my life. This desire to serve, but I didn't know what that looked like. But yeah, history and political science and government and has always been piqued my interest.
All right. So, how did you know? When and how did you know Chris was your what?
Okay, so we met Welcome Week. I'm a year older than Chris is, and I was a part of the team welcoming new freshmen on campus. And so he says we met earlier in the week. I think it's later, but regardless,
Everybody's got their different stories, by the way. The
Yeah.
wife and the
Yeah.
husband, they have a different view of what really
absolutely.
happened.
And so, but he ended up we had basically like community groups within the BCM, and he came to my community group, and that was, August. And he, as a freshman, was asked to preach homecoming weekend. And we had already started kind of dating, and I remember hearing him preach, and that's what I remember
was
sitting.
it.
Yeah, I remember sitting there and thinking, man, that's the kind of guy I want to marry.
Well, because the guy can flat out preach.
Yeah. So
It's a good thing because your life would be so radically different if he bombed.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Just imagine if he had a stinker that week.
Yeah, it would have been. And I remember hearing him preach and thinking, wow, that's pretty impressive. And not necessarily impressive as in the command of the like the text or the presentation, but just his heart of the gospel and the ability to present it. That I just thought, wow, that's pretty great. And so I think by November of that year we were dating, and we dated for about 2 years and then got engaged. So
All right, so I can look at you guys and go, wow, they are so well suited for each other, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
right.
And so, but both of you guys are very passionate people.
We are very passionate people. We are. Both of us very competitive. Both of us like
Yeah.
to be right. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, we have a lot of the same things about us, but also very different. He's my calm. There's a quote, and it's actually about the House of Representatives and the Senate, but it talks about how one is the teacup and the other is the saucer for them to boil over
Right.
into, and that's us.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I'm
a
the
great. I'd
I'm
not ever heard that.
yeah,
That's great.
I'm the teacup that boils over, and he's the saucer that's like, let's take a step back,
Yeah.
let's cool down.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
going to use that one. That's
yeah,
great. That
and
is true.
and so that is really I think I speed him up a little bit, and he slows me down. So yeah.
All right. You mentioned like history and all that. So have you worked at other jobs other than within your home right now?
Yes.
Would you say?
So so going back a little bit, when I was in college, I took a semester off. I was a junior year. In my junior year, I took a semester off, and I worked in D.C. On Capitol Hill for one of our state senators. And I thought, this is it. This is going to be what gets my foot in the door. This is where I want to be. And the Lord gave me so much more than a career when I was there. He gave me a really healthy church that is my watershed moment. Everything from those couple of months in 2007, everything splits from there. And so that was the beginning of the Lord changing my heart to something that I thought was a sure thing. This was my career path, this is what I was going to do. And he started shaping me and really refining so much that, and just, I think he let me see some of the good and the bad,
Right.
and just started shaping my heart in such a way that since then I've never, I'm trying to think, I've never worked in anything political since.
Well, okay. So when you moved there,
Yeah.
Was like your first Sunday you're in a church or?
Yeah, so
Okay.
my first Sunday.
That's important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
so
my mom moved me up to DC in August, and legitimately, we looked in the phone book for a Southern Baptist church
Okay. In the phone.
in the phone book, and as you might
Yeah, you
imagine.
can't check out web pages or anything like
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean that was just like
Yeah,
the
it's
beginning,
before, right.
like no iPhones, like all that kind of stuff. We looked in the phone book for a Southern Baptist church, and there aren't that many in the district.
Oh, right.
And there was one a couple blocks from my house, and it ended up being Capitol Hill Baptist Church with Mark Dever.
This is
And
perfect.
so
Yeah.
the grace that the Lord even showed me in that was not only was there a church, but there was this phenomenal healthy church. And at that point, I had only been a believer for a couple of years, and I walked into a church that was serious about the gospel, serious about biblical literacy on a personal level.
Right.
And I studied the Bible in a way I had never seen before. And that, when I think of that time, I think of the passage where it says, taste and see that the Lord is good, because I did, and it set me on fire for a lot of things. So when I look back at that time, I don't necessarily, I mean, there are great memories from working there, but the core of what changed me about that was being in that church.
What I mean, you are so richly blessed with the theological education through a non what's the word I want classroom situation. You know, you that's incredible that the Lord's put, because His teaching is good and solid. You've got Chris, you got your Herschel, you got the Lord's been really rich in it, and of course your daddy. But all right, so here at Becker Run, I know you wear a lot of hats.
Sure.
You're involved in several ministries and have been over the 5 years. But is there one particular now that you're just enjoying at this season of life?
So when we first came to Becker Run 5 years ago, we were just kind of switching over to do community groups for the first time, and even within student ministry discipleship groups. And we signed up to do both. And there is a sweetness. I adore our community group. That is our home base. That's our family. There are people in our community group who we have been with this entire time. and that is a sweetness and a gift that
Your group even had to split. Am I right?
we have multiplied off a couple times, and man, it that is a sweetness. And even I know you said one, but my discipleship
okay.
group, I started with those girls when they were in the 6th and 7th grade. Now they're freshmen and sophomore and juniors,
Uh-huh.
and seeing them grow up and grow in the faith, that's irreplaceable.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
their life will be great. Okay, so now saying that and seeing the way you've invested in their life, and I know one day if someone were to ask them a question, I can't imagine one of them would go, "Oh, Hannah Parrish, she really was a great blessing." To my life." Is there somebody other than Chris
Sure.
that you would say made a significant, not just impact in your life, but an impact in your relationship, in the life of your relationship with the
Sure.
Lord?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think the people that have probably don't know that they have. So my Bible study leader in DC, there are conversations that I still remember and I think of and were incredibly impactful. Um, when Chris and I first got married, we lived in Lexington and we were at a church, and Beverly and Martin Dawhair were in that church, and we saw the tangible hands and feet of Christ through them.
Do they happen to be like the doll hairs?
Yeah.
That was from
Yeah.
the rest. Oh, yeah.
Man, and they made a mark on our life that we will never shake.
That's great.
There's people at Southern. Southern was incredibly shaping for both of us, but that whole experience was huge. And I think Kathy Casey is probably, I think of Kathy almost every day.
Yeah.
The fruit of her life is going to be told through generations. It's
is.
going to be,
I'm convinced that if she were born before the canon was written, she would be like Lydia or somebody. She's going to be recorded in Scripture in some way.
Yeah.
And so, that's what it could have,
Yeah.
thing. But I can see her being such a significant
absolutely.
force in the lives.
I've
of
never
people.
met anyone like her. And she is the most like Jesus person I think I have ever met on this earth. And I think about her almost every day. And she has made an impact on the lives of my children. Elizabeth will talk about KK.
Yeah.
And
My grandson who lives in Missouri is being raised, she still stayed in contact with him. And so,
yeah.
I mean,
And I
it's
know,
phenomenal.
like, I'm not, there are many, many, many throughout this church and elsewhere who I think would say the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, she made a irreversible mark on my life, and I constantly think, how would KK handle this
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's another one of those calming
Oh, absolutely.
personalities. And, I do. I'm with you. I miss her every day.
Absolutely.
And her presence is still very looming because of the testimony of
Absolutely.
her. Okay, since COVID-19 hit,
Yeah.
is there anything new you've learned to do, either had to learn to do, or you've gotten better at doing?
I feel a little bit loaded. I cope, like
Okay,
ask,
okay.
ask
Yeah.
for forgiveness from my family. Like
Okay,
I feel like
that's a good one.
yeah, no, it has not necessarily been like, but when this happened, there were so many things out on social media that were like, just remember, Shakespeare wrote whatever during
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's, I'm just going to survive over here.
Right.
But the Lord has used this time in a way to really, really, I think, show me who I am and the refiningness of it. And like even last night before bed, going to Elizabeth and apologizing for so many things throughout that day. I mean, I don't want to learn these lessons this way, but this has
Right.
been.
But you don't want to learn them over again.
No, yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I think that honestly has probably been my biggest takeaway from things that I've learned and what the Lord has showed me. I started sewing again, which is fun. And
Yeah,
so
neat.
that's not necessarily something that I've learned, but it is something that I've kind of picked up again.
Did
So
you make a mask?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
What
been making
what's
lots
the
of masks.
pattern? What's it? What is it?
It is like, it's not the folded ones. It's more of just like,
Oh, like the fabric,
oh, okay.
color, or
Mine is like a red with little flowers on it.
okay. Is Chris's UK?
It's not. He.
I'm sorry.
I know he picked out. I had a bunch of fabric, and he
Oh,
picked out
okay.
like just like an olive green one. Yeah, he just wanted something simple and
Yeah.
yeah. But I told him. I mean, I have a lot of UK fabric.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we'll see.
we're still in them for a while.
That's right.
So
He'll need more than one.
possibly you can do another. Okay. Speaking of Chris, he is teaching now a series on biblical genres, and so just to recap what those are, you may have to help me in this, but you've got historical narrative, wisdom, poetry. Um, help me here.
Like apocalyptic
Apocalyptic prophecy, letters, epistles,
and the Gospels.
and the Gospels. Okay, so let's just say I know he's using Rob Plummer's book, and Rob probably he sort of fleshes it out and gives them a lot more divisions, is my guess. Knowing him.
yeah.
Okay, I haven't read the book. I'm going to.
Same. Yeah.
Okay, but let's say look at those, and you know what those would encompass. Is there one kind of genre that you typically are drawn to when you study?
Sure. I would probably say currently it would be epistles.
Okay,
Um,
letters.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Ephesians, Galatians, Colossians, all huge. I I think I've heard you say this, but learning the Bible narrative as a whole and learning how the histories play in, I
Right.
love that.
Yeah,
And
that you see the Bible as one book, not 66 little
absolutely.
books.
And I feel like I learned that so late. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't really
right. Same here.
until Chris went to seminary.
Made
Yeah.
it's game changer.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, that's how this works. So, even now, like the minor prophets, in our D group, we just read through Zechariah and Malachi and Zephaniah, and I was blown away. Beautiful, beautiful books, and just seeing Christ all over those. So I love seeing how the historical narrative kind of ties in, but I think if I am going to read, just pick up and just read, it would probably be the epistles.
All right. So if I were to grab your Bible, is there one place that's more worn than the others?
It is actually. My Bible, the front cover is falling off, and I'm currently in Genesis, and so that makes it a little hard when you're front cover
Right.
and you're right there.
Are you a Bible marker?
Oh,
Or
I
is it-
am.
Okay.
I
I know some people who don't write in their Bibles at all.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I
me
mark
too.
all over my Bible, and it's like my journal.
Yeah.
Like I can go back and say, I remember this sermon, I remember when it was and where, like it's yeah. Ephesians is one of the first books I walked through when Chris went to seminary, and just saw it in a new way. So yeah, I think Ephesians would be incredibly marked up.
I love the epistles.
Yeah,
I just think,
yeah,
good grief, Paul.
Yeah.
What a letter writer
Yeah.
extraordinaire. I mean, it really does challenge me to do more letter writing.
sure.
Legit letter
Well,
writing.
and letter writing that's not just superficial.
No, right.
Of just the encouragement that he provides, and even sometimes the rebuking.
Yeah.
I mean that, and in such a gracious way.
Yeah.
Colossians is one of my absolute favorites, and just the way he could use letter writing in such a powerful way.
Yeah.
Powerful
Yeah.
tool.
I mean, it's just he's brilliant in that. All right. So when Herschel does his pastor chat, he does what I think it's called twinkling of an
Yeah.
eye or lightning round or something like that. I'm going to do our lightning round is going to be called if.
Okay.
If, and then you fill in the rest. Okay. If you boarded a plane today, where would you go?
That's hard. So I've always dreamt of England, Ireland, Scotland. That is just a huge interest of me, huge interest to me. My senior history project was on Britain and Ireland, so I just want to get there. I have found since having kids, I'm less adventurous, and
Yeah,
there's no place
right.
I love as much as home. And so it's hard to leave because those aren't kind of trips you want to take with a 5 and 2-year-old.
No, right.
And so it's hard for me to imagine going anywhere. But I think that's where I'd want to be. I'd want to go to the Holy Land and see these places. Like I always have my maps out trying to figure out how this goes together. And I think being able to be there and walk and see
Yeah.
what Jesus saw when he was
Yeah.
teaching on
Speaking
the
of shalom, y'all. Got that? I actually wore this in your honor because
Yeah.
you're such a Southern fan, and
yeah.
I
I
know
love
you
it.
love Israel, and so
Yeah.
I just thought that's the perfect, like, Hannah.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. If you were given one-ish hour of free time alone,
Okay.
what would you do?
Oh man. Right now during the quarantine, I would probably just like go sit quietly somewhere. I adore the people in my house, but sometimes
Sure.
I'm like, I just don't want to be touched or talked to. And I don't like, I just, even as for someone who loves people, sometimes
Yeah. Right.
right now I'm like, I just want to be alone. I don't know. I'm not necessarily an outdoors person, but I can appreciate
Yeah.
sitting outside with a good book, or if the situation allows to go shopping. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honestly, if I had an hour to myself, I don't know that I would choose it to be alone.
Yeah.
I probably would call somebody up and say, let's go get
Yeah,
coffee. That would probably
I
be.
think I can picture that far more than the being alone. Okay, so if you're going shopping, are you like the Target, TJ Maxx person? Target?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. If you pick up a book for vacation, what would you most likely grab?
I love biographies, and specifically presidential biographies.
Okay.
So,
Ronald Reagan's biographies are
yeah.
phenomenal.
Like I have my whole, I'm not like on a political side, but on a family. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. I have a whole shelf of the Bush family
Yeah.
because I mean their family life is
Yes.
so attractive.
Yeah. Like
Even
generational.
absolutely, I find those kind of books. Even I just finished reading Michelle Obama's biography. Incredible. Chris loves stand-up comedians,
Yeah.
and we have read some comedian biographies.
Yeah.
I just think they're fascinating.
Yeah.
So I love learning about people, and I especially love seeing how at the end of the day, we are all yearning for the same thing, whether
Right.
we're believers or not. And
Yes.
you see that in people's writing, and just hearing stories. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a biography of some sort, and most likely a presidential
Have
biography.
you read any biography? I don't even know if he has it. I've read where he writes Gaffigan, any of his stuff.
I have,
He
yes.
makes me laugh out loud.
Oh, absolutely. The
His
best way
humor
the
is-
best way to read him is on audiobook because it's
'cause
like
it's- right.
like a stand up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I read anything he's written, I read it with his voice.
Absolutely.
You can't not do it with his
Absolutely.
voice. But
Yeah, I've I think read most of. I think he has like 3 or 4, and I've read most of those, but it's been through audiobook, and it's basically like sitting at
like his one on food, it's funny. It's
Yeah.
just flat out funny.
Yeah.
He's good. Okay, if someone runs into you at a local Frankfurt eatery, what might that be?
It's something Mexican.
Mexican.
Yeah, I could eat Mexican food every day
Did
of
you
the
do
week.
Cinco de Mayo? You did the.
Well, so I could eat Mexican food every day of the
Oh,
week.
gotcha. Yes, I know.
Chris, however, is I think a little too much tacoed out
Yeah.
by my love of Mexican food.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he always says
His palate has really expanded since he's been here.
he has. I'm very proud of him. No, he always says when I come home from the grocery, it looks like we're planning for a party, and I'm like, no, that's chips and salsa just for me. Like I just like
Chili's chips and salsa. Shout out.
yes.
I'm telling you,
They're
those
so crispy.
warm, they're so good.
Yeah,
okay.
they're so good.
All right. If we looked at your phone right now, what wallpaper would we see? Picture would we see? What comes up on your phone? When
So
you
when
pull it up?
the lock screen is a picture of my children. The screen behind all like my
Yeah.
icons. You know, I wanted to have some meaningful picture, but if it gets too busy, it stresses
Right,
me out.
I
So I think
understand.
it's just like a really muted pattern or something. But my lock screen is my kids.
Okay, and when's the last time you changed that?
So the picture on my my lock screen is from Mother's Day 2 years ago.
Okay, good. So you're not one of those obsessive people who
No.
changes their profile picture
No,
on
no,
a
no.
regular
No, that
basis.
picture, it's from Mother's Day 2 years ago. They're both
Great.
smiling,
Yeah.
and it is the most, I just want to wallpaper my house with this picture. I love it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Hannah, you're, what can I say? You're a delight. You're a treasure. You and I both cry easily, so I'm going to look away. But thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And we're looking forward to doing this on a weekly basis and talking to the pastors' wives here at Buck Run and hoping you get to know them a little better and love the things about them that those of us who know them have grown to love. So we will see you next time. Bye, folks.
Bye.